Most people think wealth is money, and that single belief is why they restuck where they were 5 years ago. Wealth is one of the most misunderstood concepts in modern society because people are taught to equate it with money, income, or visible lifestyle. From a young age, many grow up believing that having more cash automatically means being wealthy. This belief quietly shapes decisions for years, often without people realizing it. When wealth is seen as money, the focus naturally becomes earning more, spending more, and upgrading one's lifestyle. At first, this approach feels logical and even rewarding. But over time, it creates a cycle where financial pressure increases instead of freedom. Money by itself is temporary. It comes in, and unless it is deliberately managed, it goes out just as quickly. When people define wealth as income, they assume that each raise, promotion, or new opportunity will finally change their lives. Instead, what often happens is that expenses rise alongside earnings. A larger home, better car, more subscriptions, and higher expectations slowly consume the additional income. The person appears more successful from the outside, but internally they remain dependent on constant earning just to maintain their lifestyle. This way of thinking creates a fragile financial position. If income stops or slows, everything begins to fall apart because nothing substantial was built underneath. Wealth was never created. Only consumption increased. Over time, earning more money does not lead to greater freedom, but to greater obligation. The individual becomes trapped in a situation where they must keep running faster simply to stay in the same place. True wealth begins when money is no longer viewed as the end goal. Instead of focusing on how much is earned or spent, wealth is about what remains and how it grows over time. It is not the presence of money that defines wealth, but the absence of dependency on constant labor. When this shift in understanding happens, financial decisions start to change, and the foundation for lasting wealth finally begins to form. Wealth functions as a self-reinforcing system rather than a single event or a sudden financial breakthrough. It is not something that appears instantly the moment income increases, but a structure that slowly builds momentum over time. When people fail to recognize this, they often wait for one big opportunity, a promotion, a business idea, or a lucky break, believing it will transform everything at once. In reality, lasting wealth is created through a cycle that feeds back into itself and becomes stronger with consistency. This system works because wealth has the ability to produce more wealth when it is structured correctly. Each component supports the next, creating a loop where progress compounds rather than resets. Some individuals are born into families where this system already exists. They grow up surrounded by assets, financial knowledge, and opportunities that naturally reinforce each other. For others, the system must be built from the ground up. This does not make wealth impossible, but it does mean the process requires intention, patience, and order. Building this system manually means understanding that every financial action either strengthens or weakens the cycle. When money is used only for short-term satisfaction, the system never forms. When it is directed toward long-term value, it begins to compound. Over time, each correct decision makes the next one easier. Momentum replaces struggle, and progress becomes less dependent on constant effort. The power of a self-reinforcing wealth system lies in its ability to continue growing even when direct input slows. Once established, it does not require daily hustle to survive. Instead, it benefits from time, repetition, and discipline. Wealth, in this sense, is not about speed but direction. When the system is aligned correctly, small actions taken consistently can eventually lead to outcomes that feel disproportionate to the effort invested. Earning is the entry point to the wealth system, but it is not wealth itself. Money is simply the raw material that makes wealth possible. The way most people earn money, however, limits how much progress they can ever make. When income is tied directly to time, every increase requires more hours, more effort, or more stress. This creates a ceiling that is difficult to break because time is finite. No matter how hard someone works, there are only so many hours available in a day. When income depends on selling time, the focus shifts towards staying busy rather than becoming valuable. Tasks become repetitive, predictable, and easily replaceable. In these situations, people are paid for presence and compliance instead of judgment and outcomes. This keeps earnings stable but capped, and it leaves little room for exponential growth. Even small disruptions, such as illness or job loss, can immediately threaten financial stability because income stops the moment work stops. Earning changes fundamentally when value is tied to results instead of hours. When people are paid for outcomes, decisions matter more than effort. Judgment, creativity, and responsibility become the source of income. This type of earning scales because results can grow without requiring a proportional increase in time. One good decision can be worth more than thousands of routine actions. This is why the highest earners operate in roles where accountability is high and outcomes are uncertain. As earnings shift from inputs to results, income becomes more flexible and resilient. The individual is no longer easily replaceable because their value lies in what they can solve, create, or improve. This form of earning does not guarantee wealth on its own, but it provides the necessary fuel for the system to begin forming. Without this shift, income may increase temporarily, but long-term wealth remains out of reach. Ownership is the point where money stops being passive and starts becoming productive. Until this stage, income depends entirely on continued effort, no matter how skilled or well-paid that effort may be. Ownership changes the relationship between time and money because value can be created without direct involvement. Assets do not require constant attention to exist, and their ability to generate value is not limited to a fixed number of hours. When surplus is converted into ownership, money takes on a new role. Instead of being something that is spent and gone, it becomes something that remains and continues to work. Businesses, real estate, and equity represent claims on future value. They participate in growth, inflation, and productivity increases that occur across the economy. As prices rise and systems expand, these assets adjust naturally, allowing their owners to maintain and often increase their purchasing power. Ownership also introduces leverage that effort alone cannot provide. A single asset can generate returns repeatedly, year after year, without additional input. Over time, this creates a widening gap between those who own and those who only earn. The asset holder benefits from compounding, where gains build upon previous gains, while the non-owner must continually restart the cycle by earning again. As ownership grows, income becomes less dependent on personal labor. Cash flows arrive whether the owner is actively working or not. This reduces vulnerability to external shocks and creates stability that wages alone cannot offer. The accumulation of assets gradually shifts financial identity, moving from dependence on income to participation in systems that endure. At this stage, wealth begins to take on momentum, reinforcing itself through time rather than effort. Time is the true measure of wealth because it represents control over how life is lived. Money, on its own, is only valuable because of what it can exchange for. And ultimately, that exchange is freedom of choice. When income is tied directly to hours worked, time is constrained, regardless of how high the earnings appear. Even large paychecks lose their meaning if they require constant presence and attention. As wealth compounds through surplus and ownership, the grip that work has on time begins to loosen. Income no longer depends entirely on daily effort, and the future becomes more predictable. This shift creates space for long-term thinking. Decisions stop revolving around immediate needs and start aligning with personal priorities. Time can be allocated toward growth, creativity, relationships, and health rather than constant financial maintenance. Wealth built over long periods transforms time from a limitation into an asset. Patience becomes rewarded instead of punished, while short-term thinking demands quick returns and constant action. Long-term wealth allows life to unfold at a sustainable pace. The ability to wait, to let systems mature, and to allow compounding to do its work is what separates temporary success from lasting independence. When time is no longer exchanged for survival, choice becomes the defining feature of life. Work becomes optional rather than mandatory. Effort can be directed toward meaning instead of necessity. This is where wealth stops being about accumulation and starts being about preservation and legacy. Systems outlast individual effort, allowing value to continue even when activity slows or stops entirely. True wealth expresses itself in the freedom to decide how each day is spent. It is the ability to step away without everything collapsing. Money enables this, but time is the outcome. In the end, wealth is not what is owned, but the life it allows to be lived. If this changed how you think about money, check out my other videos on wealth, mindset, and financial freedom. More insights are waiting for you right here.